Hey man, let me offer you something that might rewire the way you think about love entirely. Everything you've been taught is backwards. You've been told that if you want her, truly want her, you have to earn it, work for it, prove it. That love is a reward given to the man who shows up the hardest, texts back the fastest, gives the most, and never leaves her wondering. But here's the truth that changes everything. The men women obsess over aren't the ones doing the most. They're the ones doing the least, not out of cruelty, not out of games, but out of something far more powerful, a grounded completeness that doesn't need to chase, prove, or perform. You want her to love you, to crave you, to think about you when you're not there and feel something shift inside her chest when you are? Then stop giving so much, stop flooding, stop proving, stop chasing, do less, because here's what no one tells you. When you're constantly showing her how much you care, you're not building attraction, you're suffocating it. You're filling every gap where her feelings could have grown. You're answering every question before she gets the chance to wonder. And wondering, that's where love is born. Not in certainty, in curiosity, not in your presence, in your absence, not in what you give, in what you withhold. This isn't about being cold, it's about being complete. It's about understanding that your attention, your time, your emotional energy, these are not free samples to hand out hoping she'll buy. They're rare resources, sacred, and when you treat them that way, she feels it. She feels the weight of your restraint, the gravity of your stillness. The power of a man who doesn't need her to feel whole. That's what makes her lean in. That's what makes her chase. That's what makes her fall. Not your effort, your essence. Let's get into why this works, because it goes against everything you've been programmed to believe. You've been taught that women want attention, affection, constant reassurance, and yes, in some sense they do. But there's a difference between what she says she wants and what actually creates attraction in her body, her mind, her nervous system. What creates attraction is tension. Tension is the gap between knowing and not knowing, between having and almost having, between security and just enough uncertainty to make her heart race. When you give her everything, all your attention, all your time, all your emotional availability, you eliminate that gap. You remove the tension, and without tension, attraction flatlines. She might appreciate you, she might call you a good guy, but she won't burn for you. She won't lie awake thinking about you. She won't feel that pull in her chest that makes her reach for her phone, hoping you've messaged, because you've already given her everything. There's nothing left to chase, nothing left to earn, nothing left to wonder about. You've made yourself predictable, and predictability is the enemy of desire. Think about it. When was the last time you obsessed over something you could have at any moment? Something that was always there, always available, always within reach. You don't crave what's guaranteed, no one does. We crave what might slip away, what's rare, what's uncertain, what requires us to rise. And when you do less, when you hold back, when you create space, when you're not always immediately available, you become that rare thing. You become the tension she can't resolve, the question she can't fully answer. That's where obsession lives. I used to think being a good man meant giving everything I had, until I discovered that the more I gave, the less she wanted. What I'm about to share changed my entire understanding of what women actually respond to. Let's talk about what happens when you do too much, because most men don't even realize they're doing it until they've already lost her. When you overtext, overcall, overexplain, overgive, you think you're showing her how much you care. You think you're proving your worth. You think the more available you are, the more secure she'll feel. But what she actually feels is something different. She feels crowded. She feels like she's being managed. She feels like the chase is over before it even began. And slowly, without either of you realizing it, she starts to pull away. Not because you did something wrong, but because you did too much right in all the wrong ways. You become the safe option, the backup plan, the emotional support system she leans on but doesn't lust for. She'll appreciate you. She might even say she loves you, but it's the kind of love you give to a comfortable sweater, warm, familiar, completely without passion. That's the cost of doing too much. You stop being a man she desires and become a function in her life, an emotional utility, someone who fills space instead of creating it. And here's the painful part. You probably did all of it with good intentions. You were being kind, attentive, present. Everything you were told women wanted, but kindness without scarcity becomes charity. And no woman falls in love with a man who feels like an unlimited resource. She falls for the one she might lose, the one whose attention feels earned, the one who makes her rise to meet him instead of bending down to meet her. That's the shift. To understand why doing less works, you need to understand something about the feminine psyche that most men never grasp. Women don't fall in love with what makes sense. They fall in love with what makes them feel. And feeling requires contrast, light and dark, push and pull, presence and absence, the thrill of having you and the slight fear of losing you. When you're always there, always available, always predictable, there's no contrast. There's just flatness. A straight line of certainty that registers in her emotional world as boring. But when you're grounded in your own life, your own mission, your own completeness, when you're present sometimes and absent others, you create rhythm, you create contrast, you create the emotional peaks and valleys that her heart interprets as aliveness. This is why she'll ignore the man who sends paragraphs and obsess over the one who sends 2 words. Not because 2 words are more loving, but because they leave more room for her imagination. She fills the gaps you create, and what she imagines is always more powerful than what you could say. Her mind works in your favor when you give it space, when you don't over-explain, when you don't answer every question before she asks it, when you remain just slightly unknowable. That mystery, that slight uncertainty, that's what keeps you in her head. If you keep flooding her with attention, you'll keep killing the very attraction you're trying to build. But there's a specific way to pull back that creates magnetic tension instead of cold distance. Let me show you exactly how it works. Let me be clear about something. Doing less doesn't mean doing nothing. It doesn't mean ghosting her. It doesn't mean being cruel or cold or playing games. Doing less means doing the right things with precision. It means not texting back instantly just because she texted you. Not because you're manipulating, but because you have a life. Because your world doesn't revolve around her notification. It means saying no when you need to say no. Without guilt, without over-explaining. Without apologizing for having your own priorities. It means not reacting when she tests you, not jumping to soothe her when she throws emotional chaos your way, standing still when she expects you to flinch. It means speaking with weight, not volume. Fewer words, more impact. Letting your silence carry meaning instead of filling every gap with noise. Doing less means you're the mountain, not the wind. You're not chasing, you're not adjusting, you're not constantly proving. You're simply standing in your own frame, grounded, stable, centered, and letting her feel the pull of your gravity. That pull is more attractive than anything you could say or do, because it signals something primal to her, that you're a man who doesn't need to perform, a man who already knows his value, a man whose validation comes from within, not from her response. And that kind of man, he's rare. He's magnetic, he's unforgettable. You're probably giving away your attention for free, and it's costing you her respect without you even realizing it. Let's fix that right now, because once you understand this, everything shifts. Here's something most men never learn. Restraint is power, not weakness, not coldness, not emotional unavailability. Power, the ability to give and choose not to, the ability to reach out and hold back, the ability to speak and stay silent. That's masculine containment. That's what she's starving for in a world full of men who spill themselves everywhere hoping to be noticed. When you withhold, you signal something profound. You signal that your attention is not free, that your time has value, that your emotional energy is reserved for those who've earned it. And that scarcity, that's what creates longing. She doesn't want a man who gives everything at the first sign of interest. She wants a man whose investment feels like a reward, whose attention feels like an achievement, whose presence feels like a privilege. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you actually have a full life, actually have standards, actually have a frame that doesn't collapse the moment a beautiful woman shows interest. That groundedness is irresistible because it tells her you're not desperate, you're not needy, you're not orbiting her waiting for scraps of validation. You're the center of your own world, and she can either join you or not, but you won't bend, you won't chase, you won't shrink yourself to fit into her frame. That energy creates attraction on a primal level, not the kind she can explain, the kind she feels in her chest, in her stomach, in her nervous system. That's what restraint gives you. That's what doing less creates. Here's where it goes deeper. Doing less isn't just a strategy, it's an identity shift. It's moving from being a man who seeks validation to being a man who embodies it. From proving you're worthy to knowing you're worthy. From chasing her approval to standing in your own. Most men operate from a position of lack. They feel like they need to earn love, like they need to convince her to choose them, like they're auditioning for a role in her life. But the man who does less operates from a position of fullness. He's not trying to fill a void with her attention. He's already complete, already whole, already at peace with or without her. And that fullness, that's what pulls her toward him. Because women don't want to complete you. They want to complement you. They want to enhance what's already there, not build it from the ground up. When you come to her empty, needing her to make you feel good about yourself, she senses it instantly, and it repels her. Not because she's cruel, but because that's not the energy that creates desire. Desire is created by a man who has something to offer, something solid, something grounded, something that doesn't shift based on how she's feeling that day. That's the shift. From needy to needed, from pursuing to pursued, from orbiting to gravitational, you become the center and she starts to orbit you. Not because you're manipulating, but because that's what happens when you embody completeness. Stop trying to prove you care. That's exactly what's making her lose respect. Here's what to do instead, and why it creates the opposite effect you'd expect. Let me tell you something about women that most men never figure out. She will test you, not because she's cruel, but because she needs to know if you're real. She'll throw emotional chaos and watch if you stay calm. She'll pull away and see if you chase. She'll say something slightly disrespectful and measure your reaction. These aren't attacks, they're assessments. She's checking if you're the man you're presenting yourself to be, or if you fold under pressure. And here's the secret. The man who does less passes these tests effortlessly because he doesn't react, he doesn't chase, he doesn't flinch when she tests his frame. He observes, he holds, he stays still. And that stillness, that refusal to be thrown off center, that's what makes her trust him. That's what makes her respect him. That's what makes her feel safe enough to surrender into her feminine. Women don't want a man they can control. They might test to see if they can, but when they succeed, they don't celebrate. They lose attraction, because a man who can be controlled by her emotions can't protect her from the world. A man who folds when she pushes can't lead when she needs him to. She needs to know you won't collapse, and you prove that not by telling her, but by showing her through your non-reaction. Your stillness speaks louder than any promise. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you finally stop chasing, and why it creates a complete reversal of the dynamic that changes everything. Here's what no one tells you about doing less. When you stop chasing, she starts searching. When you stop explaining, she starts wondering. When you stop giving everything away, she starts earning it. It's a complete reversal of the dynamic, and it happens naturally when you embody completeness instead of need. See, when you're the one always reaching out, always initiating, always proving, she's the prize and you're the contestant. The power is entirely in her hands. But when you pull back, when you become the man whose attention is valuable, whose time is scarce, whose approval is earned, suddenly she has to work for it. And that's when attraction ignites. Not because you're withholding out of cruelty, but because you're finally standing in your actual value. You're finally treating yourself as the prize. And when you do, she feels it. She feels the shift. She feels the ground move beneath her. Now she's the one checking her phone. She's the one wondering what you're doing. She's the one trying to decode your silence. That's the power of doing less. It's not about playing games. It's about finally valuing yourself enough to stop giving yourself away. Let me give you something that might feel uncomfortable but is deeply liberating. Permission to stop. Stop being the one who always reaches out first. Stop being the one who smooths over every conflict. Stop being the one who gives and gives while receiving scraps. You're allowed to hold back. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to create space. You're not cold for doing this. You're not heartless. You're not a bad man. You're a man with standards, a man with boundaries, a man who knows his worth isn't determined by how much he sacrifices for someone who hasn't earned it. For so long, you've been taught that being good means being endlessly available, that loving someone means putting yourself last, that the right woman will appreciate your martyrdom. But that's not love. That's codependency dressed in nice guy clothing. Real love, the kind that burns and lasts. It's reciprocal, it's earned, it's built on mutual respect, not one-sided devotion. And you can't build that if you're constantly pouring into someone who hasn't proven they'll pour back. So stop. Stop over-functioning. Stop over-explaining. Stop over-giving. Start holding. Start observing. Start valuing your energy like the precious resource it is. That's where your power returns. There's one more piece to this that most men never discover. And when you understand it, you'll finally see why doing less isn't about tactics. It's about becoming someone she can't forget. Women remember certain men forever. Not the ones who gave the most. Not the ones who said all the right things. Not the ones who were always available. They remember the ones who felt like something rare. The man whose attention felt valuable because it wasn't freely given. The man whose presence felt powerful because it wasn't constant. The man whose words meant something because he didn't waste them. That's the man who lives in her mind long after the others have faded. And he does it not through performance, but through presence. Not through effort, but through energy. Not through proving, but through simply being. He's complete in himself, grounded in his purpose, unshaken by her moods, unwavering in his frame. He doesn't need her to feel worthy. He doesn't need her validation to feel whole. He doesn't need her at all. And paradoxically, that's exactly what makes her want him. Because a man who doesn't need is a man who can actually love. His love isn't desperate. It's chosen. It's given from fullness, not lack. That's the man she doesn't forget. That's the man she comes back to. That's the man she measures every other man against. Not the one who did the most, the one who embodied the most. So here's what it all comes down to, brother. Doing less isn't a trick, it's a truth. It's understanding that your attention is currency and you've been spending it recklessly. That your time is sacred and you've been treating it like a commodity. That your energy is power and you've been leaking it in every direction hoping to be loved. Stop leaking, start holding, stop chasing, start attracting, stop performing, start embodying. When you do less, you don't become cold, you become centered, you don't become distant, you become gravitational, you don't become heartless, you become whole. And from that wholeness, she feels something she can't explain, something she can't resist, something that makes her lean in instead of pull away. Not because you're playing games, but because you finally stopped playing altogether. You're just being grounded, still, complete. That's the man she falls for. Not the one who gave everything, the one who held his ground. So stop apologizing for needing space. Stop feeling guilty for not texting back immediately. Stop explaining your silence like it's a crime. You're not distant, you're disciplined. You're not cold, you're centered. You're not rude, you're rare. That's the shift. And when you make it, when you finally let go of the need to prove and start living in the truth of your own value, everything changes. She'll feel it, she'll chase it, she'll want what she suddenly realizes she might lose, not because you manipulated her, but because you finally valued yourself enough to stop giving yourself away. That's the power of less, and it's yours the moment you claim it. If you want her to love you, do less, be more, let her feel your absence, let her wonder, let her rise to meet you, and when she does, meet her with depth, not desperation. Because the man who does less, he always gets more.